I was at the St. Jude's Marathon spectating, and seeing you do that first marathon and fully send it. I could see in your eyes after you did that race that there was something very different about you. And I didn't know what it was going to lead to, but I was excited to see the journey that was going to ensue. So maybe that's a good starting point for our listeners, just talking about your decision to sign up for the marathon, the experience of the race, and what's ensued since then.
Yeah, sure. So I got into running, I would say about a year ago. Last summer, 2023 was when I started to going on more runs, but it was still pretty inconsistent. I wouldn't have called myself a runner. I was going a few times a week. And then in the fall, I started to push myself a little more. And our friend Danny Miranda was signed up for this Memphis Marathon because it's like a random small marathon, but I think his dad ran it, and that's why he wanted to do it. And so I was like, screw it, I'll sign up. And the moment I signed up, something happened where like a switch was flipped, and I was just on YouTube all day looking up videos. How do I run? How do I pace? What workouts do I do? How do I do this? And I trained hard. I only signed up like a month and a half before. Didn't properly train, really, but doing the actual marathon completely changed my life. And the reason is because I'd only done like one somewhat long run before that. Like one 16-mile run. It was a great run, but I hadn't touched anything over that, anything close to 26.2. And so it was a very unique time in my life, but that marathon felt like a completely outside of my body experience, pushing myself like that. And like I said, I've never spent that much time on my feet. I've never pushed as hard as I did that day. And like you said, you could see it in my eyes. Something was awoken 100%. After that marathon and my second one, which we could talk about, there was a shift. And I was never the same again. And it's like, it's a marathon. Everyone does it. But I think people treat marathons differently. And some people, it's fun. You do it party pace, whatever. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in going to this place and finding a new version of myself on the other side. And that's what happened that day, 100%.
Yeah. And the time that you had, which was 3 hours and 17 minutes, it's a tremendous time. 3:16. I missed it by a minute, but it's a tremendous time for your first race. And I do think that there's a lot of truth in what you just said. Like there is 100% a way where you can do a marathon, have fun, still drink alcohol, kind of be a weekend warrior and try and enjoy that experience. Like, yes, I think no matter what, no matter how fast you're doing a marathon, there is some degree of pain, but I knew you, and I knew that if you were going to be signing up for this race, like you would basically be willing to die on the course to get that end result that you were ultimately looking for. And I also think that anyone that really knows you outside of Instagram knows that you put incredible pressure, internal pressure on yourself. And I think that's just because I think you believe that God blessed you with some amazing talents and you ultimately want to tap into those talents. But I remember talking to you in the sauna with Danny. It was like the week of the race. And it wasn't that you were negative, but you were just you were like just talking about all the different factors. And I had done a few marathons before that, and I knew you. So I knew that once you got to the start line, everything was going to be good. But I also knew that you were thinking about a lot of those variables in your head, things that could go right, things that could go wrong. And then it was so cool for me to be at the finish line and see the feeling of, I think ultimately the feeling of pride that you had for yourself. And you had like, I think you had to go to the aid station or the tent or something like that because you were so banged up. What happened there?
I was messed up. I think I was just super dehydrated.
Yeah.
But I was like hypothermic for literally 45 minutes, almost needed fluids. Like I was sitting in the tent covered in tinfoil. It was wild feeling because it was 30 minutes after a marathon and my hands were like ice cold. Crazy feeling. But yeah, that's what happened there. And yeah, that whole week I was so stressed, the whole week of the marathon, because you're right. I do put so much pressure on myself always. Like to me, it wasn't just a race. This was like a life-defining moment, even though it was just this random marathon.
Yes.
But it was in that time I needed something like that. And that's always been my who I am. I put incredible pressure on myself and I rose to it that day. And that was part of the excitement as well, setting this goal that, look, a 3:16 marathon is nothing. Even my last marathon, it's nothing. There's way faster people who are way less, who train way less, whatever. But in the moment, that seemed super like right on the line of unrealistic. And the fact that I was able to do it gave me so much confidence. And I only did it because I pushed myself in a way I never have. And so, yeah, after that, a lot of things changed.
Yeah. Yeah. And now with this, your standards just continue to raise and raise the more races and the more crazy shit that you do. So I think now you're probably thinking, oh, a 2:30 marathon is possible, maybe even lower than that over a long-term time horizon. But a 3:16 for your first marathon is incredible, especially considering the fact that you signed up a month and a half before, didn't really know what you were doing from the fueling perspective, didn't really know what you were doing when, you hit mile 20, mile 21, and those last 5 to 6 miles are its own race entirely. And I really do. I know I'm going back to this, but just that feeling in your eyes where my sense as your friend being a spectator was like, I think you started to realize, holy shit, if I just did a 3:16 with this type of training, what am I actually capable of when I go all in, which is such an incredible feeling to have. And then you just get that dopamine hit of like, what could Zach become if he fully goes all in on this pursuit?
Yeah, what's possible.
Yeah.
And running's a sport you can do for a while. Like
Yeah.
there are people who hit their peak in like late 30s even. So I'm 27.
Yeah.
So if I just keep going with this sport, I have a lot of room to grow. And that is part of what really excited me. Yeah, I don't know. It was just like getting to this mental place I've never been is what did it for me.
Yeah.
And then it made the rest of life feel different. I had to make some really hard decisions in my personal life, and they became easy to make because I had gone to this whole other place that made the rest of reality feel very soft. And that's part of why I'm running the way I am. You could say it's running away from something, and maybe that's how it started. But in reality, I think it's running towards this feeling that changes your whole perspective on the world. And that's what I'm addicted to. That's why I'm running the way I am now. I just want to go to these new places that I haven't been.
Yeah, and I was looking up some of your Strava stats before this. So you've already done two official marathons, right? In terms of that are actually races this year.
Yeah.
You've run 1,200 miles on Strava. You did 3 marathons in 3 days last weekend. And then tonight, this is a very special time to record this episode. You're going to be literally running from sunset to sunrise, 9 hours, 50 miles on the West Side Highway, correct?
Yeah, the main goal is 9 hours. And the side quest goal is 50 miles. They should both align kind of perfectly.
Yeah.
Unless something goes wrong. But yeah, that's tonight.
What do those stats that I just read off mean to you, knowing where you were this time last year and the transformation that's occurred in you?
It's pretty wild. You can't imagine it. Like after I did this last weekend, I kind of felt like I barely ran, which is insane. To be fair, I was a little messed up after the 3rd marathon because I kind of sprinted it.
Yeah.
But it took like a day and then I was pretty sore. But it's been like 3 days, 4 days. I'm fine now. Can't fathom it. That's what's fun about it. A year ago, a marathon to me was this unbelievably ridiculous goal. It was like, okay, let me change context. It was just this huge thing. I couldn't imagine doing a marathon. But at the same time, and I couldn't imagine doing a marathon then, and now it's just like I could do it any morning I want at a good pace. Could go run a marathon anytime at 8:30. But even in the beginning though, the way I treated the marathon was like, okay, it's just 3-4 hours of running. People have this idea of it as this massive, massive, massive thing. I'm not going to see it that way. There's no reason to see it that way just because of like this story around it that people make. No, it's just you're going to go run for 3 or 4 hours. And I've always had that perception of it. Like people inflate things. Even in school, like people inflate organic chemistry. Like when we were talking about school before, people inflate these classes. Oh, it's not that bad. Like you just go and do it. But if you tell yourself this story of how hard something is, it becomes way harder. Instead, you can kind of play tricks in your mind that these things are not as colossal as people think.
Yeah.
And it's a fun like game I try to play.
When you just did last weekend, when you did the 3 marathons in 3 days, was that the goal, or did you just decide to do a marathon, bounce back the next day, and then just say, fuck it, I'm just going to make a hat trick and go 3 for 3?
No, it was the goal. Probably decided officially on like Tuesday. That's kind of what it is. With this sport, I think you have to train for the questions you're most curious about. And that idea, 3 marathons in 3 days, excited me a lot. And it's all in preparation for this Montauk run as well. That's like the logical reason. But there's also the not logical reason, which is I just wanted to push myself. So
what do you think it is about the pursuit of running that's allowed for this like transformational alchemy that's occurred within you the last year?
I let it consume my life, honestly.
Yeah.
Like most of this year, all I've done is think about running. It's what I've spent most of my time doing. It's what I've spent, if you looked at all my time on Strava, I don't know what it is, but countless hours running. And you have the sport of it, which is actually doing it. And there's the time you spend in your head alone just running. And those things combined, I think, completely change a person. Completely. And so, yeah, that's why when I started doing it last year, when I wasn't as in good a place, I just got so addicted to it and kept letting it take over my life and now it's become, there was no plan here. It just happened, which is what I always talk about with obsession. You really can't plan it. You have to just wait for these things to come and completely take over your life. It happened to me last year with the animation stuff, right? Came into my life. I wasn't looking for it, but I saw it. And then I went on a 4, 5, 6 month sprint, put out an animation every single day, and it completely changed my life doing that.
Yeah.
Completely. I think doing that, finding that content vehicle put me probably like 3 or 4 years ahead in my career, my mission, whatever. Seriously. And the running is going to do the same thing. I'm always just like looking for these things. And then when you find it, you just know because you're spending all your time doing it. Like last year, I was like, I didn't even use all this information, but I was like reading old books about like Mickey Mouse and like old cartoons and like finding these old cartoon Bibles of like, how did they pitch these old shows? Yeah, it just took over my life. And I think that's how you really find these iconic creators who go on these ridiculous rises. They're constantly looking for these exponential opportunities. They let it take over their life and then they go to the next one and the next one. And like I said, you can't plan them, but when they come to you, not everyone will go all in. I've always been willing to like screw everything I'm doing. Yeah, people just know me for my writing. I'm gonna go run. I'm gonna go try to take over the running space. I'm gonna go try to be one of the best runners, best like, you know, with quotes. But yeah, so that's, and now, like I said, running has become a core part of the obsession movement I'm trying to do because it's given me a real way to show the ideas. Where like David Senra shouted me out the other day. He's like, he was already a fan of me and obsession before I started running. But now it's like, I'm fascinated with Zach's obsession with running. Gives a whole nother aspect to it where I am genuinely trying to demonstrate the concept and live the concept. And it's just very fun. It's very fun for me, that game where it all combines into one thing. That's what I wrote about yesterday. I was like, it is about running, but it's also not about running. Every single thing I do is just leading towards this lifelong, blood-written, like Death Note mission to spread obsession to the world.
Yeah.
And when you kind of have everything going that way, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think for anyone that really understands your content and digs into it, I think it's very clear to realize like the pursuits that you're going after from an endurance perspective are not an extension of like selfishness or trying to be like, oh, look at me, look at how fast I am. I think you're just embodying that mindset of obsession and showing the world what's actually possible when you do have that obsession hat on and what that actually does to you as a man. And I can say this from personal experience. I don't think there's a worse feeling in the world when you know the things that you're supposed to be doing, but when your head hits the pillow at night, you know, in your like every fiber as a man that you're not doing those things. And I don't think that there's a better feeling than really getting that dopamine hit of like, I am leaving it all on the line right now. I couldn't have juiced the lemon any more these last 24 hours.
That's the best feeling.
It's the best feeling.
100%.
Yeah. I had a really good question queued up, but it's slipping me right now. What is this Montauk run that you were just talking about?
Yeah, this is kind of my big crucible this summer. I want to run from Montauk to New York City. It's like 130 miles. I'll probably try to do it before August or early August. Still trying to get the logistics together. But yeah, tonight will be like my last big kind of preparation run. Do that, and then we'll see after that. My rough plan now is to get back to the marathon stuff for a few reasons. One, because I kind of miss it. I miss running fast. The ultra stuff, the ultra long distance, you just have to go slow, relatively. You could run like 8-minute paces, but yeah, that to me like that's not fast for me. And so I do want to see what I'm capable of there. It also is like, just to be honest, this shit like takes over your life. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
One, because of the time you have to spend training, and two, you just have no energy. You just have no energy. and there are things I need to build and do. And I think the lifestyle of marathon training fits it more right now. But we'll see. Like I said, it comes down to what I'm most curious about. So if I do this Montauk run and it's the best experience of my life, I might just want to go full into the ultra stuff and go race those. But we'll see after I do it.
Yeah. In my opinion, outside of pursuing a relationship with God, I think there are two pursuits that teach you more about yourself than anything. I think one is just following an entrepreneurial path and building out a business in line with your vision from scratch. It's a knife fight every single day. It's the highest highs you'll ever experience. It's the lowest lows. It almost feels like you're bipolar. That's one of the things that Mark Andreessen talks about in his founders letters. But I've learned more about myself in the last 2 years since starting Meat Mafia and Noble than anything else. And I think the second pursuit is running. We were talking about this last week. I ended up doing a 30-mile run on July 4th with Matt Johnson in Avalon, New Jersey, because I really wanted to do 30 miles for 30 years because I had just turned 30 on June 28th. And then he always does an American flag ultra where anything over 26 miles, he'll run with an American flag. Savage. And you gain such an appreciation for these incredible endurance athletes doing a run like that. But for me, I was undertrained. I'd been running a bunch the last 2 months, but I hadn't run anything over 15 miles since I did the Austin Marathon in February. And our customer service rep for Noble quit. So I was doing all of our customer service tickets while we had a product shortage. So I literally barely slept for the 3 nights before that. So my body was all jacked up. I had a bunch of family things, but I was like, and there were so many excuses for why I logically thought that I shouldn't do the run. And then even when you're doing that race, you just learn so much about yourself and your mental talk. And I was matching his fueling strategy, which was basically nothing. He drank 2 Cokes the entire run.
Half the size of you.
He's a savage. And so I'm like, I know that I could do the run, but I need to walk it more and I need to take in more calories. But I was matching his fueling strategy. So by the time mile 17 came around, I was so jacked up, dude. Like we were on the boardwalk. It was 95 degrees. We were baking in the sun. I was underslept, undernourished. And the excuses that I was telling myself, dude, were crazy, where I was like, this is his run. It's not your run. Just make it to mile 20. You can quit. Make it to mile 23. You can quit. And having someone like that there being like, dude, you're not quitting. We signed up for this together. And then, you just keep chipping away the miles. And then you eventually hit like mile 25, mile 26. And you're like, all right, I'm close enough. I'm going to finish this out. But just my mental talk, like just getting in the lab and doing something so difficult, it reminded me of all the endurance races that I did prior to starting the brand. And that run made me realize that I need to be pursuing an entrepreneurial path while doing these races in tandem, because there's this critical part of me that I'm pulling off the table when I don't do those runs. And I'm sure you feel that too.
Yeah, 100%.